Hey, and welcome back. We were in court last week in Georgetown and in Horry, so I've got a few cases to update there. Also, we're in court again this week in Horry and in Georgetown, so there's a lot going on, but here are some of the trials and some of the pleas that took place last week. In Georgetown County, we had a young man named Ralph Frazier. He received 12 years on a burglary second violent. There was about 4 counts of those burglaries, but he had 2 or 3 co-defendants with him. All of the co-defendants pled last year, and the last one in that string was Ralph Frazier. This series of burglaries involved several counties, but important to us was in southern Georgetown County, and again he pled guilty and on a violent burglary charge and received 12 years. Also out of Georgetown, Delano McDowell, 31, from Atlanta, Georgia, came to visit family and had a trafficking weight methamphetamines on him. He also had marijuana, which was possession with intent to distribute weight. So he was charged on all of that off of a vehicle stop. The meth was actually pressed into pills, and that's something to sort of keep your eye on. What these guys have been doing is through Amazon or whatever, they get a pill press, and they can make these pills look like basically anything. This meth was shaped into a pill that looked like MDMA or ecstasy, but he had enough of that on him that it actually came up to trafficking weight meth, and he received 14 years in prison on that charge. Andrews man received 30 years in prison. This involved a home invasion. The victim was a 64-year-old Mr. Bill Butler. He was a Vietnam vet. He avid churchgoer Christian. He failed to attend Wednesday night service, and that's sort of what made the congregation know something was wrong. This was back from February of 2021, but there was very few leads, very little physical evidence, but we were able to get a plea out of that case. The defendant, Philip Powers, 50-year-old friend of Mr. Butler's, had gone to his house when he thought Mr. Butler would be at church, and was burglarizing the house, and Mr. Butler was home, and he ended up killing Mr. Butler. He pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, first-degree burglary, conspiracy, and grand larceny, and on all of those charges he received a sentence of 30 years. That is a sentence that is what we call no parole, but in actuality it means that he will serve about 27 years of that 30-year sentence before he is eligible to come up for parole. So that is Phil Powers, 50, should put him at about 77 when he comes up for parole, and Mr. Butler was 64 years old when he met his demise. And finally, well, not finally, we had one case in Horry which we tried for attempted murder. James Nichols assaulted his mom. We picked a jury on Monday, and the jury came back on Wednesday with a guilty verdict on a lesser degree of attempted murder, and found him guilty of assault and battery first degree. James Nichols was sentenced to 10 years suspended upon the service of 7 years and 5 years probation on assault and battery first. Her injuries come up to at least assault and battery first, but the jury could not form a consensus on whether or not it was attempted murder. And when you charge someone with attempted murder, it means everything but the person actually dying took place. So our contention was that he had tried to strangle her, and but for her living through it, it would have been murder. So it's always tough when you're trying to show what's in the defendant's mind, and the jury did find him guilty of assault and battery first. So he's going to serve 7 years on that and then come out on probation. All right, and finally, in Georgetown County, a case that had captured the nation's attention. 17-year-old Brittany Drexel had come to Myrtle Beach, sort of against her parents' will. She was here on spring break in 2009, where she went missing. We had a few camera shots that you saw all over the news where everybody was out trying to look for Brittany Drexel, and that case started almost immediately upon her going missing in 2009, but for 13 years it really had set a lot of work going into it, but no real new leads, just chasing down thousands of other leads. Finally, after 13 years, there was enough evidence to go after Raymond Moody, 62-year-old now, from Georgetown County. Raymond had served 20 years on a 40-year sentence in California for a series of rapes. I think it was 7, maybe 8 rapes in California. He pulled about half that time, and then California let him out, early release. Ray moved back to Georgetown, and he hadn't been back to Georgetown very long when Brittany Drexel went missing. He came into court last week, admitted what he had done, which was basically rape her down at the by the river at the pole yards, and then at the end of the rape, he had strangled her to death and put her over a fence that had been guarded off. He came back later that night, early the next morning, about 3 o'clock, moved the body to an area near the Georgetown airport, an undeveloped area, and buried her about 4 feet deep. When we did talk with Ray Moody about what he had done, he confessed to the crime. I guess that would have been in probably April or May of this year, and immediately took us to the body. We had to keep it really under wraps for the longest time because we had to try to find the body before the media found out where she was. So only a few people knew about it, but this was an effort by the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, the City of Myrtle Beach, the Sheriff's Office in Georgetown, the Sheriff's Office in Horry County Police Department. So many people came together to help with this case, and the FBI actually did the dig in that area where we were able to recover some personal items to Brittany Drexel, and we found her remains. Those remains were sent to South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. I left those guys out, but they did a lot of work. Also, SLED confirmed through dental records and then again through DNA that was in fact Brittany Drexel, and then her earthly remains were returned to her parents so that she could have a proper burial. Raymond Moody, 62, pled guilty to murder, rape, and kidnapping, and received a sentence of life imprisonment without possibility of parole. So that took place last week also, and we're very fortunate and very happy to be able to at least give the family some answers as to what took place. All of those cases last week, and again there's a group going on with trials and pleas in Horry and Georgetown this week, and we will update you at the end of the week and let you know how it all went this week. Y'all have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next week.